Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Between Realms. Today I am honored to be joined by Noelle Cope, who is a multi-hyphenate creator that I have admired for quite some time. So thank you for joining us today, Noelle.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited for this conversation.
What we're here to discuss today is the central conversation of why it's so important for us to talk about these films with our friends, why it's important that we are still so engaged in the movie community, and why it is above all else exposure important for our growth and development as individuals in the
I
society.
think for me, one of the first things that I was so excited about with film and TV was obviously like most children, you watch a lot of shows with your parents, and your parents help you gain media literacy skills. They explain, why there's insert shots of like certain objects and their importance. And you kind of just you learn that naturally through watching TV, but normally there's an adult figure who helps you trust your instincts with storytelling. But I remember as a kid, I would always get so jealous of the way that grown-ups could stand around and have what my mom always called like water cooler talk when they were watching a show. And she talked about how she watched a soap opera back in her day, not because she necessarily liked it, but because that's what all the women in the office would talk about. They would all watch it, show up the next day, talk about the latest episode, and that's how they went through the week. And I remember just like overhearing throughout childhood of these shows that everybody was always talking about. I was like, when I'm a grown up, I'm going to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's
And
how
I
I felt
remember,
about Game of
you know,
Thrones when I was way too scared to watch it. Game of Thrones was something where I was like, man, one day I'm going to be able to watch it because I see so many people gathering, making these little dinner parties together to
yes.
watch it. It's such a wonderful space of community. But that really is where it starts, where our parents are deciding what to show us, what we're growing up on, what TV shows we watch as kids. And that's another way adults find a way to connect with other adults is, well, what shows did you watch? Did you watch SpongeBob? Because I didn't watch SpongeBob.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big
I
one.
I remember one time with a friend, she had been born, I don't know what part of China, I want to say around the Beijing area, but it's a very large part of the country. But she and I had not watched any of the same childhood shows, and we were trying to connect. We were both 13. She had only moved to the US 3 years prior with her adopted family and all this stuff. And we were trying to figure it out. And then we realized the one show we had both watched as children was Teletubbies.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, you wouldn't think that would be such an important show, but all of a sudden, Teletubbies became such an important way for us to get to know each other because we are like, okay, well, who is your favorite Teletubby? Like, this will tell me everything for us to build a foundation of friendship. And it's so important from an early age to an adult age. I mean, I have made friends with so many people just because I see them wearing, a beautiful throne of glass shirt or Court of Thorns and Roses shirt. And I'm like, hold on, wait, wait. You
Yeah.
also are part of the Sarah J. Maas universe?
Yep.
Like, it's just kind of this instant, like, calling card or, like, that's the person that you're like, "Oh, wait, I feel safe asking you for help."
Yes.
We
Yeah.
have this inside connection now.
No, the inside connection with strangers is such a wonderful, wholesome experience that, yes, it's so fun to talk about the things that you love with your friends that you're close with, that you've shared this for a long time. But a moment like that with a complete stranger is one of the most wholesome things that I still come across to this day. But something I do want to take a step back and make note about what you said was thinking about these tropes within TV shows about, oh, what's your favorite character in this? That tells me everything I need to know about you. That is also why the exposure is so important here because TV and movies is a way for us to model behavior and be seen in situations that we would never be able to see in regular day-to-day life as kids. We're not in these adult situations. It's modeling adult situations before we're even in them.
Exactly. A big thing that I always think about because we talk about, like, the performative trends. Oh, performative reading, performative hobbies, all these things, and I'm like, the thing that we're kind of forgetting is that in my assessment, which is all children start off performative.
Yeah.
Everything we learn is a performance and a mimicking of those around us. And eventually we decide what feels good. And then we stick with the performance long enough that it becomes authentic. But
Yeah.
every child is a highly performative little like specimen. And we even see like with animals, animals will like copy their owner limping. All of that's a performance, but it's a performance to connect and socialize. And so the shows that you watch are so valuable for helping determine that. And I mean, I think you can look back at kind of like every generation's like mega shows and you can see the distinct ways that it informed and shaped certain elements of communication, culture, fashion. I mean, I will never forget being a kid and desperately trying to dress exactly like Hannah Montana. And there's always those of us who wanted to dress more like Miley and more like Hannah. And that was also such a big part of like socializing, social integration, and performance and self-discovery.
Yeah, no, and I mean, even just from a National Geographic standpoint, it's a natural part of human nature and animal nature when you're born into this world to look to some sort of figure. More often than not, it's a parent figure, but you're looking to some sort of figure for approval of, is this okay? Is this safe? Is this something that I should be doing? You're trying to find your own internal voice of how to stay safe in this world, how to make friends in this world, how to build relationships. And that's a great model. And it's almost like Bandura's doll test, if I'm remembering the correct psychologist in that situation, where yes, children are modeling what the adults are doing, but in same turn, the whole point of that is the children best learn through this sort of performance. They have to perform an action in order to learn the action in the first place. So performance is learning in its rawest, most basic form.
Oh, 100%. I mean, most children do better within a performance structure. That's why kids will go through phases of copycatting. Why are
Yeah.
you copying me? Why are you copying me? It's a call and response. It's interesting if you want to get even more deep. There's a reason why so many people continue to praise within the world of acting the Meisner technique, where you just do repetition and repetition, but repetition with these boundaries and these strict things because that's so much of it. There are, improv games and warm-ups that are built to enhance what you do on stage by doing zip, zap, zap, and all these things that are very repetitive, mirroring, mimicking. It's a very fun thing. It's very interesting. Obviously, there can be parts of it where you're performing for a very selfish means to an end versus for self-development. And I think that that's where like the difference between like the jokes about performative masculine behavior has that sinister edge that is very valid.
Yes.
But from a more developmental, a more like self-experimenting, trying on different elements of your personality for size and seeing what fits you best and how to tailor it, there's going to be a somewhat performative element to it. Like I remember one friend joking with me after a night out. She said, every time I go out in LA, I thank God I'm not 22 and I'll never be 22 again." And I was like, "Why?" And she was like, "I fundamentally believe 22 is the cringiest age for a girl." She's like, "Because you're transitioning truly from interacting with media and media that's skewed more towards college and all of that." She's like, "You've been able to legally drink for a year, so that shine of being 21 has worn off, but you're not quite a woman at 25 yet." And she's like, "22 is just a cringy age because you're so close to being who you are, but you're still cosplaying your future self."
Yeah. That's a
And I was
great
like,
way to put it.
but
That's
our media shapes that and it transitions that phase and it makes it easier or harder. And I was just really thinking about it. I was like, yeah, 22 is such an overlooked age for women in media.
Yeah, no, 22, 23, like that whole range. It's really like you bought a shirt that's too big because you know you're going to grow into it kind of situation. It's just, it's odd and it's awkward, but it's nice when the shirt finally starts to fit a little bit. And then you're like, wait, I was crazy, but like I was crazy for good reason. It's all starting to make sense now.
It's the personality equivalent of your first training bra.
Yes. Yes, that's exactly what it is. Oh God. I remember so vividly I cringe right now thinking about it, but when I bought my first training bra, I remember being in Target and my mom took me to buy it and I saw these girls that were like the cool girls in class and they were all together. Their mom was nowhere to be found. They were walking around Target alone because they're the cool girls. I was there with my mom. I was the weird girl. And they come over and they talk to me. And so I didn't know what to do. And so I stand there with my training bra like this. And my mom was like, "Why were you just waving your bra around like that?" And I'm like, "Because we're in fourth, fifth grade. I needed to show off that I had a bra and one of those girls didn't." And like, that was the only thing I had on them in that moment. You were cool as hell walking around Target with your friends with no parent in sight. Obviously, there's a parent somewhere, but like, you get a little free range to go one aisle over. I had to do something, anything.
No, I remember it so distinctly. I was on a trip to visit extended family, and I went to Old Navy with my cousin and my aunt. And my cousin, being a couple years older than me, she's already like in high school and all of that,
Mhm.
like, implied to my mom that I should, like, get my first training bra, and they were on sale at Old Navy, and, like, they were really cute and soft, and, of course, like, if my cousin's shopping at Old Navy, suddenly Old Navy's, like, the place to be because she's in high school, like, she has a cell phone, like,
Yeah.
she's got a boyfriend, like, oh my god, like,
Oh, yeah.
I need to take your advice, and I just remember being so excited because she, like, made it really cool and, like, advocated for me to, like, get my training bra in that moment, and, like, her mom and my mom were cool about it, and I was like I felt really rad, and then I was, like, so excited and trying not to tell everybody when we returned back from the store that I had put it on, I was, like, wearing it. 'Cause, like, we did not need to tell all of, like, the whole extended family, but it was a big moment for me.
Yeah, that was the weirdest thing. That moment of like getting a bra for the first time and being so excited, but also the like immediate shame of never show anyone your bra.
No, literally, nobody acknowledged that I have a woman's body, but I'm a child, and it's not a woman's body, it's a child's body, but, like, I'm so confused.
What? Like that. Let's like looping it back to the point of the conversation. Having something like that, being able to watch a movie or TV show where we're seeing a character go through that. I can't think of a movie, can you? Like we have so
The
many coming of
closest
age movies, but yeah.
the teenage bra moment thing, the only thing I could really remember off the top of my head, I don't think they have a bra scene, but just, like, captured the weirdness of that age so well was Angus thongs and perfect snogging. I think, like, the
Ooh.
thong metaphor to the bra metaphor works. Like, that just encapsulated not just the weirdness of girls, but, like, I will never forget in the opening of the movie, like, when the boys at her school are trying to, like, light their farts on fire. I was like, "This is the perfect film for that weird, unruly age."
So I need to watch that film. Again, this proves our point of I grew up in an incredibly sheltered home. There are so many things that I have not seen at this age that I absolutely should have. She's the Man. I watched that at the wonderful age of 26. And if I had seen that at 16, I would have left my boyfriend at 16 because the guy in She's the Man used the same lie that that ex-boyfriend of mine did when he was cheating on me. That level of exposure, if my mom had just let me watch that, I would have learned that lesson. What like that, yeah.
Yeah, no, it is such an important part of culture, like, I was not allowed to watch SpongeBob as a kid.
Yep.
And so, not as big as leaving a high school boyfriend who was shitty. But I just know that I miss out on so many memes and jokes and in emergency situations, somebody's like, "Okay, we need to do this like that." I'm like, "I don't know that episode. I actually cannot get in on this covert plan because I don't understand the reference." And they're like, "Fuck, we can't do the plan. The plan is called off, guys. We don't have time to explain the reference. We can't go through with the plan." And I'm like, "I'm so sorry. I blew it." I never watched SpongeBob.
Yeah, it's a horrible feeling. And it was, again, we were children. We were at the mercy of what our parents chose. And truthfully, at the end of the day, now that we are at this age and we've seen what's come out about the show, I do commend my mother for standing strong on that when it was not the easy choice to make. There is something to be said for, I appreciate that, but there will always be that missing out element. Like I'll never forget my childhood best friend. I wasn't allowed on YouTube. I wasn't allowed on anything under the cover of night. Like we were in some sort of horrible situation. She would be like, okay, here's the list. Here's everything that you're being made fun of about in school that you need to know. And we're going to go on YouTube secretly because my mom's not awake and she can't catch us.
Oh, yeah.
What? We were, no.
No, I had an acting class teacher that actually talked a lot about this. As he was like, he fully stood by parents that would not let their kids watch specific things because of age of appropriateness, maturity, and, moral, ethical things to some extent. He was like, when it comes to certain things, he's like, we shouldn't necessarily spare children from critical thinking and harsh media just because it puts more onus on the parent to have to explain to them complex or unflattering depictions.
Yeah.
He's like, that's actually necessary because he's like, look, we shouldn't have a show where there's no bullying because guess what? Your kid's going to go to school and be bullied,
Yep.
but they're not going to know how to tell you they're being bullied because they don't want to seem mean or judgmental.
Yeah.
They're going to be in a school system that's not going to know how to fix bullying. He's like, but watching a show where it's David versus Goliath, but it's, a bullying allegory, that they'll understand.
Yeah.
But you have to be willing to talk to them about it. And I always really appreciate that because he in, like, the acting class we would be in, we would meet people who had come from very strict households where they're like, I didn't watch a movie until I was 10 years old. And he's like, that is a social disservice at this point. He's like, unfortunately, media, movies, storytelling, human connection has moved to the point where you have to consume some level of things and, maybe not, you know, YouTube videos and like, you know, what's the fox say might not be necessary. But, classic, very standard films are going to be necessary for that development. And then even talking about high school, I'll never forget how deciding to watch like the first Captain America movie changed my friends and my lives. And we saw that movie and we were worried about going in to see it because like a lot of us had come from more rural places. So our media consumption was a little more monitored. Mine less, my parents, because of my dad being a creative, he was a lot more open to it, but things like violence were fast forwarded through for a lot of films.
Oh
Like
yeah, every
I could
time.
watch intimacy much sooner than I was allowed to watch violence.
Oh yeah, no, so we always had like a hand come across and like and then more that come in and somehow there's
Yeah.
hands just coming from every angle to cover all of that.
Yeah. But I remember with Captain America, I was like, okay, I feel like I can trust this to be like, I can handle it.
Yeah.
And I was so grateful because it changed how my friends and I talked about the type of men we wanted to date.
Yeah.
Like Steve Rogers set so many of us up, regardless of, we can make the arguments of like divorced parents, fathers that were not in the picture versus very active fathers. Didn't matter what our at home situation was. All of a sudden, we had Steve Rogers and Peggy, and we could talk about it.
Yeah.
And we could talk about our aspirations set forward by him being a man who had integrity,
Yeah.
a man who was willing to listen to a woman as she was. And then this woman who's uncompromising in herself, but didn't have to fall into the need of being any type of way to prove she was strong.
Yeah.
She was just a well rounded human being, strong, soft, loving, loved, caring, asked for help even when it wasn't easy for her and didn't like to.
Yeah.
And then you had this man who was willing to constantly challenge himself and challenge his shame complex
Yeah.
to do the right thing and also be a good man to the woman he loved. And I was just like, hold on, I hadn't seen that. I had grown up on so much like early 2000s, the guy's going to stalk you. He's going to lie to you. His friends are going to convince him to do a gag and a ruse so that you go out with him to prove that the most meanest girl in the school, just because she likes herself.
Yeah, he's gonna hurt your feelings at least once trope. I need it to be gone.
No, and so it's like all of a sudden we weren't talking about the same type of guy. We weren't assuming. And we could push back against that old trope that I hated as a kid, which was whenever a boy was rude to me, they're like, "Oh, he probably likes you." It's like, if he likes me, why is he mean? Suddenly, Steve Rogers came along.
Yeah.
If he likes me, he'll be nice to me.
Yep.
If he likes me, he'll treat me like the individual human being I am versus like I am a rock in his shoe.
Yeah, I think that is why I am so excited for Steve Rogers to come back as an example in Marvel, just because he is a wonderful example for a lot of younger boys that do start watching these shows at a very young age, especially these new generations that are being brought in as people our age are having kids and they're like, this is the Bible, you must watch it, you must know this, for this exact exposure, for this media literacy. So that way when they grow up, even within their own household, they're like, to survive in this household, this is the knowledge that you need to have to even just understand language in the house. And that is so important, because if that child didn't have that within the own house, they would feel so isolated from their own parents, like the concept
Oh,
of what
yeah.
that would do. But in the same way that like a picture is worth 1,000 words, a movie, a TV show can verbalize emotions that we would never otherwise be able to verbalize. And it's such a important piece of communication, because how often are we just like this, that, or whatever else, and that reference is unanimously understood by everybody that has partook in that piece of media.
Well, it also is such a great way to understand people who come from other generations.
Yeah.
I was very lucky that my parents would always tell me like what their favorite movies were, and I could look at it and understand. My mom was obsessed with Nora Ephron and You've Got Mail,
Yeah.
and I see her in the film and why she loves it. I see why my dad was obsessed with Casablanca and everything Humphrey Bogart. And for him, why he loved Humphrey Bogart, because Humphrey Bogart was an underdog. He
Yeah.
was too short. He had complicated speech patterns and a speech impediment. He had come from a family that had rejected him because he was not perfect and he didn't live up to the standard. I grew up watching women like Katharine Hepburn, who embraced so much ambiguity and was unrelenting in the fact that she was not going to make herself smaller or more soft or more feminine or talk in any way that wasn't true to her. And so I grew up with all these different idols that my parents introduced me to, and it taught me about my grandmother's generation living through World War II, my other grandmother's generation living through the Great Depression. And then recently I watched the Julia Roberts film Mystic Pizza. And I was like, I understand why my mom talked about Mystic Pizza the way she did. 1980s, three sisters, or like in the movie, I think it's two sisters and a friend, but it reminded me of my mom's family structure. And they weren't Italian, but they were Hungarian.
Yeah.
Her father owned, a sausage store. My grandmother at that time owned like a small grocery store. I was like, this is so similar. No wonder this film hit my mom in the same way. She got Julia Roberts' life. And so using that film, I got to see the world my mom lived in without ever having to live in that world.
Yeah, no, it's a really wonderful way to be like, here's a piece of myself that I would never be able to take you inside my own brain. Like, even as much as I want to travel inside my own brain and like exist in these worlds, like that's the only way I can do it is by pressing play on my TV. And that is, I guess, the benefit of TV. And we'll loop in the conversation of theaters and going back to theaters and what streaming and regular cable has done. And now what's going on with short TV and vertical TV on social media platforms. But the whole idea that I lost my train of thought, actually.
Well, I was just gonna say, I mean, going back to the conversations with strangers, I love when I come out of the movie theater and everyone's talking. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden, as you're like in that little cluster, because people are like, stopping to throw their popcorn away, you'll overhear what somebody says and then go, oh, wait, I want to say this to you. And I want to say this. Or, great example in the opposite of that is when I saw Hamnet after it ended,
Yeah.
nobody moved. I have not been in a theater where it was dead silent, nobody moved because everybody was taking this moment
Yeah.
before we left all of those feelings, the journey we'd been on, and went back to the real world. We all needed those credits to take a minute to breathe.
And we watch other people more than we realize. So, the importance of people watching, even if you're not having conversations, you notice the rest of that theater reacting that way. You were in that moment, you experienced that with all of these strangers that you don't even know their faces, you don't know their names, any of that. But you shared that experience. And without having a single conversation, you are able to understand other people's reaction to that film. That is an element that you don't have to go to these theaters. You don't have to talk to the stranger behind you, in front of you, or the kid that was kicking your chair the whole time. You don't have to talk to them. But just by being in that environment, by people watching, because we cannot help it, it is our human nature to pay attention to our surroundings. We have really trended more and more and more towards paying more attention to ourselves than others. And while it's a good thing to mind our own business, it is still good to understand that there are multiple perspectives out there, and movies are meant to be community driven, where books are totally individualistic. You're supposed to dive into that world by yourself, digest it, translate it, and then bring it back with you from what you understand. But a movie has always been community driven because it comes from theater itself.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and The thing I'd also say that's helped me so much with books has actually been going to book clubs and finding spaces and going to bookstores and like talking to other book readers because it is so beautiful to hear the different moments that touch other people because the greatest gift that art will ever give us is human connection.
Yeah.
It is always going to do this crazy thing of trying to take what's in here and break down all of the like barriers that come with having separate bodies and separate life experiences. And to me, that's like what always draws me back to writing is I can sit and try to have a conversation with someone. I can try to bare my soul through a conversation, through all these things. It will never break down and go straight to someone's heart the way anything I create will.
Yeah.
We don't need to know the context for Vincent van Gogh's Starry Night to stand in front of it and weep, feeling the sorrow he felt in that moment.
Yeah.
You don't need to know a thing about him. You don't need to know anything to feel it in a single picture.
Yeah. Yeah. That's,
And that's,
yeah.
I mean, that's what's always going to come back to. And there's nothing like standing in front of a painting like that with other people and feeling the way the energy shifts when everybody in the room starts feeling the same emotion that has been presented to us by an individual or by a film, a project, creativity. I mean, on the flip side, that's the beauty of comedies. And like when my mom was battling breast cancer, one of the biggest tips that everybody kept saying was only watch funny films, only watch happy films, create that feeling in your body. And we watched so many absurd, silly things. We watched classic films like What's Up, Doc with Barbara Streisand.
Yeah.
And we would watch Disney Channel shows. And we would, like, I remember after one of her surgeries, she was so upset because she couldn't watch Hannah Montana with us because
Yeah.
she was gonna she's gonna rip stitches. And she's like, we can't watch this episode. And I'm like watching her try not to laugh
Oh my God.
as we're like watching this episode. She's like, I can't, but it's so, and of course it was Jackson like falling through a door and being ridiculous. And I was just like in tears. And I'll never forget the joy that that show and that episode and Jason Earle's comedy brought us in a very dark time at a time when her diagnosis was not optimistic.
Yeah, no, and that's really why I think I have a very sensitive heart, especially towards watching sadder things or scarier things. It's really important to lift yourself up. Your brain is not differentiating between the information that it's processing, it is simply taking in that information. And yes, you're watching a film from another perspective, but that is still a bystander watching that experience occur. That is still something to be processed, even the same way that being in a car accident, being a bystander, somebody who watched the car accident, is still its own level of processing, just as being in the car accident is its own more extensive level of it. But you have something to process there, and so much of movies and TV shows are shifting towards that first person perspective, which is a very dangerous line if we're not aware of what we're taking in and if we're processing it in the right way, because we're just taking on all this crap that's not even ours because we just want to watch a scary movie because it makes us feel something.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's definitely always going to be a very fine line and a fine line that's always going to be defined by, I think, the creatives that have like the beautiful integrity and really showcase things. Like a film, I will always show as a great example of using that beautifully and using that to create channels of empathy
Hmm.
and opening people up who didn't know they were capable of that depth is going to be a film like Moonlight.
Yeah.
That won Best Picture at the Oscars, which, Best Picture Oscars, there can be a lot of conversation about like, can you actually award art to that level and singularly? But I think what it showcased though was how many people were transformed by a film that they did not relate to. It was not a relatable film. It was not a traditionally universal film.
Yeah.
What it reminded us though is that we all can find love, compassion, understanding. We are more open to new perspective and stories than we ever give ourselves credit for.
Yeah.
None of us needed to have the complicated dynamic with a parent that was struggling with addiction.
Yeah.
None of us needed to have gone through a justice system that was designed to turn young boys into hardened criminals with no opportunity to explore another future and why that systemic oppression exists. We didn't need to struggle with our sexual identity in a community where it felt unsafe even without that added layer of the closet.
Yeah.
It you didn't need any of that to be transformed by the film and the story and to become immersed in it.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, always a very, very positive testament to it. And then on the flip side, you have other films, like very famously, I think it's called Raw, and it was the French cannibalism film, and people were vomiting in the theater because it was so upsetting.
Yeah.
And, you know, from a experimental art standpoint, fascinating.
Yeah.
For me, as someone trying to work in film and TV, I'm like, I don't think we need to abuse our audience to the level that their body is under that level of physical distress to tell a story.
And at that point, I think that we need to have some sort of regulation there. In the same way there's regulation in experiments, in science experiments, in research, the human mind, just because you can't see what you're doing to it does not mean you're not inflicting harm. And I think a lot of times people don't realize when they are engaging in self-harm, it is not something that is always physical. Self-harm can take many, many forms, and putting yourself through something like that consistently because you're so used to that feeling, you don't realize is residually doing some level of damage, and at some extent to inflict, and I do mean inflict in a very negative term, to inflict emotions upon somebody like that is just as physical as it sounds, because we are having a physical
Oh,
emotional
yeah. I
reaction.
mean, I think this nice thing is when it comes to film and television, there's already so many by nature of the business, all these things to kind of help with that. Raw, very different setup. Cannes Film Festival choosing to show it. Film festivals work a little different. You know, it had its own thing, but for the most part, film and TV is more standard. We have, you know, the PG-13 R. We have all of that style rating. What we don't really have that's gonna be continue to be interesting, because I started to feel it as a kid myself, is the lack of protection on the internet. We have censorship, right? You can't say certain words, so now we have unalive, we have implied terms, all these things, but when it comes to certain psychological things, what we aren't going to have regulation for and what kids will continue to be able to send each other is going to be very graphic AI generated content that will be terrifying. We'll be able to, if kids can't access websites like Pornhub, it's very quick and easy for children to be able to create AI generated porn of each other and send it and distribute it. And that is going to continue to be disturbing. The amount of young women I already know who very quietly have admitted that there has been AI generated porn of them just using photos available on the web
Yeah.
that was created by men who were stalking them, men who they had ghosted, and in some unfortunate cases, men that they had had relationships with.
Yeah.
And then those AI generated images were then distributed as if they were real because that person had a personal connection. It was able to produce evidence of having interacted with this woman socially once, social media following, an entire relationship. And this woman now being like, it looks like I work on OnlyFans. I don't work on OnlyFans. I've never done that. And now my job is in jeopardy because I'm not allowed to create that content and work in whatever capacity. So I think that's where it's going to continue to get harder. And it's going to get harder as we're unable to blur the lines between, is this real image of a person or an animal suffering? Is this a real image of your wife cheating on you?
Yeah.
That and our inability to, and even if we can eventually differentiate it, for the moments that we think it's real, we have now created a sensitivity, a trigger, a doubt, a fear,
Yeah.
as if it is a real thing that is 10 times worse mentally than anything we've seen in film and TV.
Yeah, no, the
Like
cognitive
we're elevating
dissonance
it.
of real or not real. Real or not real. Like we're all gonna be walking around like PETA. PETA fucking Malark. Real or not real, Katniss. Katniss, real or not real. Like that we're all gonna be the Jabberjays, real or not real. That's what I'm gonna go insane. I can see my future, and I'm gonna cut my hair short and dye it blonde. And I'm gonna start
No,
making those
literally.
PETA Malark memes.
I feel like I keep being like, I can't open my phone to get a text from a friend and then see AI. I'm like, I keep seeing the Barbie flip phone and I'm like, do I want the Barbie flip phone? Like it's calling to me. And not like I'm someone who wants to hide under a rock. I love many technology. I cannot take that blurred line effect because I feel how damaging it is. I feel how hard it is the second that I open, an Instagram DM. I'm like, is this going to be fake? Is this AI? Is this AI? It is costing me my joy in
Yeah.
consuming the internet. And
Yes.
I'm like, you know what? The thing is, when you go to a movie, unless you're seeing a documentary, you go in subscribing, knowing that it is a creative art form that people have cultivated, a certain level of realism, but then the rest is fake. You subscribe going into that.
Yeah.
The email chains, the DMs, the weird things that I see other kids and cousins looking at on their phones where I'm like, that's AI. Like you can't sleep. It's the Slender Man thing on steroids.
Oh my God. Yeah, I remember how that video traumatized me as a child. And that wasn't even scary.
That's the thing. I'm so,
Oh my
our parents had a lot going for them when they were careful with what we consume. They did their best.
Yes. Oh
But,
my gosh. It's really just gotten to a point where it's difficult. It's really difficult to walk a line, and I feel like there's so many lines to walk. You've just lined yourself into a box. And now we're kind of just all bumbling around in this box and we don't know what to do with ourselves anymore. But at some point, there's got to be a way out. And I really think that with all of the independent films that are being produced, all of these ways that the community is actively seeing the repercussions, actively seeing the direction we're going in, and trying to find something different, trying to be like, wait, bring it back, bring it back, bring it back.
No. Wait.
We don't need to go there. We don't want to go there. I've seen the future. It's bad. It's horrible. Let's turn around. Let's go the other way. So I think that there's some hope there at the very least. But,
100%. I think we're finally getting to the point as the film industry is kind of like recovering. And as streaming services platforms, theaters like AMC are looking for counterculture. They're looking for unusual things. They're looking for something that will compete and go up against these big blockbuster movies. Because when all the seats are sold out at IMAX and people still want to have a movie date night, what's the other film that they can go see? What's interesting? And we're finally seeing, I think, people under 40 making films.
Yeah.
And that's really exciting. Granted, we've seen a huge decline in films made by women, and we're seeing a decline in films made by people of color in the past 2 years, which, based off the state of the industry, was unfortunately to be expected. But
Yeah.
those films that do get distribution, that are getting made, perform so incredibly well.
Yeah.
They are doing so good. They are creating such a hub of culture around them that I'm excited. I feel so invigorated to consume art. And I also think that books have really been fueling it and encouraging. Like every filmmaker that I talk to who's interesting, every filmmaker interview that I hear, they're all readers, they're all artists. We're getting kind of back to this like Renaissance mentality of art, which
Yes.
is very much reminding me of the 90s fashion movement.
yes. Oh my gosh, that would just be gorgeous to see.
Like I remember reading this fantastic book, Champagne Supernovas, that talked all about the rise of Kate Moss.
Mhm.
Why did people like Kate Moss? How was she the opposite of kind of the, tall, crazy supermodels that had this very, kind of the Giselle types that
Yeah.
came before her? And why did her look pop off? Why did this become the style? And then reading about McQueen and where he took his inspirations and why he wanted to do this, and the publications that were exposing all of these people, the photographers, that whole movement, and the way that everybody was wearing so many different hats is reminding me of what we're seeing in indie film right now, and it makes it so exciting. We're taking risks.
Let me actually just take this opportunity to just jump our conversation over to, while you're talking about people getting really scrappy and finding their own way to figure out and make it in this world, I would love to turn the conversation over to you because I have long admired how you have really found your own footing and the way you hold your values as you move through these spaces. It's a really beautiful thing. So I would love to talk more about that here.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I think a lot of it's always going to be about being a little bit delusional about what you create. I think that as creatives, we generationally, which is why it's exciting to see so many young filmmakers and writers and stuff, under 35 and under 30 truly coming up, is we have been taught to wait for permission in so many ways. And, when you look at people like Richard Linklater and Steven Spielberg, who are both white men that come from older generations, they didn't. They just went, I want to do this, and I know everybody's going to like it. And so they did it. And even if it was bad, they did it anyway. And I think that I just kind of hit a point where I was so tired of seeing the world that the people I cared most about living in. I got tired of the way that so many of the experiences that I was having conversations around were never shown in media, or if they were shown in media, it was discouraging, it was disheartening, it was shame inducing.
Yeah.
And so I think that I just saw so clearly in myself that there was an alternative way to do these things, that there was ways, knowing everything that I had consumed about art and artists I admired, that we didn't have to live like this. We didn't have to have media like this, most specifically with anyone who has survived abuse. We did not need it. And that was kind of the thing that really pushed my poetry career and my writing career and being more personal, was me going, I don't want us to keep living in this idea that if you've been abused, you'll be, a prude, or you'll be a sex worker, or all of these things that aren't real to the vast majority of people, men, women, non-binary, who have lived through these traumas.
And yeah, your book
And
was really where I found you, the impact that it's made on an unnumberable of people's lives. I know that any therapist I've handed it to, my college professors, it just keeps getting referred and then referred and then referred, like the craziest little butterfly effect. So it's made such a wonderful impact in that way.
as a creative, there's been nothing more oddly rewarding, because obviously it was a horrible experience to go through, and I would never wish any other living soul to have lived through anything similar. But that's not something I can control. But the ability to receive messages from people saying that this is the first time they found art, media, words outside of their own that encapsulated this feeling, and what that did to cure them of one of the most harmful elements of the trauma and the PTSD, which is this unrelenting feeling of isolation, has been really, really powerful. And it's been really encouraging, because I've written so many scripts, I've worked on so many movies, I've acted in so many projects, but how much access people have to them, or the depth to connect with me as a creative, has always been more distant, which I enjoy. And I've always been like, I don't want anybody to know about me. I like being a mystery. Um, but it's been really beautiful to be able to actually see, like, oh, wait, none of us need to ask for permission for any of this. And
Yeah.
that there is such a huge world of people who lead and consume art and media with compassion, and who actually want art and media that offers them compassion. And that doesn't mean that we have to tamper our rage or our sense of humor or sadness or any of that. All of those things can still exist within compassionate storytelling. Compassionate storytelling for me is just really this idea of understanding the magnitude of the human experience for each individual, and trying to never make that smaller than it is.
Your perception on all of this is very valued, and it allows other people to take a look through that perception and kind of get a healthy look at what it can be from the other side after you've gone through it.
Yeah, I've been so lucky. So much of the readers of Notes from the In-Between have been a lot of men who have always heard that there was negative depictions of these experiences, and have an individual in their life, again, of any gender, that they want to better understand. And so they read the book to make themselves a better loved one.
Yeah.
Because they want to understand their mom in the way that is respectful of her experience, or they have a sister or a girlfriend. And it's so, I mean, it's beautiful. It's my favorite part of being a creative. And I'm very lucky
Yeah.
that there's the world out there that is willing to receive it.
Yeah, that's really amazing. So if anybody wanted to find this book, find you on other social medias, where can everybody find you?
The book is available in a bunch of independent bookstores all across the country. It's called Notes from the In-Between. My name's Noelle Cope. It's also available online all over the world. You just have to check your region. And that's not to ship it internationally, like, it's manufactured on basically every continent, so you can get it locally. And then I have a new book coming out in the fall of 2026, which is a much more fun collection of poetry that deals with coming of age, and it's called Valley Girl Manifesto, which is a really good piece about performance, the performative nature of the Valley Girl stereotype versus the beating hearts of the women around us.
Yeah.
And on social media, Pretty much every single platform, you can find me with the username Noella, Noella Cope, Cope. YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, you name it, I'm there.
No, phenomenal. Well, I hope everybody comes to check you out. And thank you so much for being here with us today. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you so much. I always love our conversations.
Yeah, you're the best. Well, I love you guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.